The Last Tournament by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Dagonet, the fool, whom Gawain in his mood had made mock knight of Arthur's Table Round, at Camelot, high above the yellowing woods, danced like a withered leaf before the hall. And toward him from the hall, with harp in hand, and from the crown thereof a carcanet of ruby swaying to and fro, the prize of Tristram in the jousts of yesterday, came Tristram, saying, "Why skip ye so, Sir Fool?" For Arthur and Sir Lancelot riding once far down beneath a winding wall of rock heard a child wail. A stump of oak half dead, from roots like some black coil of carven snakes, clutched at the crag, and started through mid-air bearing an eagle's nest. And through the tree rushed ever a rainy wind, and through the wind pierced ever a child's cry. And crag and tree scaling, Sir Lancelot from the perilous nest, this ruby necklace thrice around her neck, and all unscarred from beak or talon, brought a maiden babe. Which Arthur pitying took, then gave it to his queen to rear. The queen but coldly acquiescing, in her white arms received, and after loved it tenderly, and named it Nestling. So forgot herself a moment, and her cares, till that young life being smitten in mid-heaven with mortal cold passed from her. And in time the carcanet vexed her with plaintive memories of the child. So she, delivering it to Arthur, said, "Take thou the jewels of this dead innocence, and make them, and thou wilt, a tourney prize." To whom the king, "Peace to thine eagle-born dead nestling, and this honor after death, following thy will. But, O my queen, I muse why ye not wear on arm, or neck, or zone those diamonds that I rescued from the tarn, and Lancelot won, methought, for thee to wear. Would rather you had let them fall," she cried, "plunge and be lost. Ill-fated as they were, a bitterness to me. Ye look amazed, not knowing they were lost as soon as given, slid from my hands, when I was leaning out above the river, that unhappy child passed in her barge. But rosier luck will go with these rich jewels, seeing that they came not from the skeleton of a brother slayer, but the sweet body of a maiden babe. Perchance, who knows, the purest of thy knights may win them for the purest of my maids." She ended, and the cry of a great jousts with trumpet blowings ran on all the ways from Camelot in among the faded fields to furthest towers, and everywhere the knights armed for a day of glory before the king. But on the hither side of that loud morn into the hall staggered, his visage ribbed from ear to ear with dog-whip wheels, his nose bridge broken, one eye out, and one hand off, and one with shattered fingers dangling lame, a churl, to whom indignantly the king, "My churl, for whom Christ died, what evil beast hath drawn his claws athwart thy face? Or fiend? Man was it who marred heaven's image in thee thus?" Then, sputtering through the hedge of splintered teeth, yet strangers to the tongue, and with blunt stump pitch blackened sawing the air, said the maimed churl, "He took them and he drave them to his tower. Some hold he was a table knight of thine, 100 goodly ones. The Red Knight, he, Lord, I was tending swine, and the Red Knight brake in upon me and drave them to his tower. And when I called upon thy name as one that doest right by gentle and by churl, maimed me and mauled, and would outright have slain, save that he sware me to a message, saying, Tell thou the king and all his liars, that I have founded my round table in the north, and whatsoever his own knights have sworn my knights have sworn the counter to it. And say my tower is full of harlots, like his court, but mine are worthier, seeing they profess to be none other than themselves, and say my knights are all adulterers like his own, but mine are truer, seeing they profess to be none other, and say his hour is come, the heathen are upon him, his long lance broken, and his Excalibur a straw. Then Arthur turned to Kay the seneschal, "Take thou my churl, and tend him curiously like a king's heir, till all his hurts be whole." The heathen, but that ever-climbing wave, hurled back again so often in empty foam, hath lain for years at rest, and renegades, thieves, bandits, leavings of confusion, whom the wholesome realm is purged of otherwhere, friends, through your manhood and your fealty, now make their last head like Satan in the north. My younger knights, new made, in whom your flower waits to be solid fruit of golden deeds, move with me toward their quelling, which achieved, the loneliest ways are safe from shore to shore. But thou, Sir Lancelot, sitting in my place and chaired tomorrow, arbitrate the field. For wherefore shouldst thou care to mingle with it, only to yield my queen her own again? Speak, Lancelot, thou art silent. Is it well? Thereto Sir Lancelot answered, "It is well. Yet better if the king abide, and leave the letting of his younger knights to me. Else, for the king has willed it, it is well." Then Arthur rose and Lancelot followed him, and while they stood without the doors, the king turned to him saying, "Is it then so well? Or mine the blame that oft I seem as he of whom was written, a sound is in his ears. The foot that loiters, bidden go, the glance that only seems half loyal to command, a manner somewhat fallen from reverence. Or have I dreamed the bearing of our knights tells of a manhood ever less and lower? Or whence the fear lest this my realm, upreared by noble deeds at one with noble vows, from flat confusion and brute violences, reel back into the beast, and be no more?" He spoke, and taking all his younger knights, down the slope city rode, and sharply turned north by the gate. In her high bower the queen, working a tapestry, lifted up her head, watched her lord pass, and knew not that she sighed. Then ran across her memory the strange rhyme of bygone Merlin, "Where is he who knows? From the great deep to the great deep he goes. But when the morning of a tournament, by these in earnest those in mockery, called the tournament of the dead innocents, break with a wet wind blowing, Lancelot, round whose sick head all night, like birds of prey, the words of Arthur flying shrieked, arose, and down a streetway hung with folds of pure white samite, and by fountains running wine, where children sat in white with cups of gold, moved to the lists, and there, with slow sad steps ascending, filled his double dragon chair. He glanced and saw the stately galleries, dame, damsel, each through worship of their queen white-robed in honor of the stainless child, and some with scattered jewels, like a bank of maiden snow mingled with sparks of fire. He looked but once, and veiled his eyes again. The sudden trumpet sounded as in a dream to ears but half awaked, then one low roll of autumn thunder, and the jousts began, and ever the wind blew, and yellowing leaf and gloom and gleam, and shower and shorn plume went down it. Sighing weariedly, as one who sits and gazes on a faded fire, when all the goodlier guests are passed away, sat their great umpire, looking o'er the lists. He saw the laws that ruled the tournament broken, but spake not. Once, a knight cast down before his throne of arbitration cursed the dead babe and the follies of the king. And once the laces of a helmet cracked, and showed him, like a vermin in its hole, Modred, a narrow face. Anon he heard the voice that billowed round the barriers roar an ocean-sounding welcome to one knight, but newly entered, taller than the rest, and armored all in forest green, whereon there tripped 100 tiny silver deer, and wearing but a holly spray for crest, with ever scattering berries, and on shield a spear, a harp, a bugle. Tristram, late from overseas in Brittany returned, and marriage with a princess of that realm, Iseult the White. Sir Tristram of the Woods, whom Lancelot knew, had held sometime with pain his own against him, and now yearned to shake the burthen off his heart in one full shock with Tristram even to death. His strong hands gripped and dinted the gilt dragons right and left, until he groaned for wrath. So many of those that wear their latest colours on the casque drew from before Sir Tristram to the bounds, and there with gibes and flickering mockeries stood, while he muttered, "Craven crests, O shame! What faith have these in whom they swear to love? The glory of our round table is no more." So Tristram won, and Lancelot gave the gems, not speaking other word than "Hast thou won? Art thou the purest, brother? See, the hand wherewith thou talkest this is red." To whom Tristram, half plagued by Lancelot's languorous mood, made answer, "Aye, but wherefore toss me this like a dry bone cast to some hungry hound? Lest be thy fair queen's fantasy, strength of heart and might of limb, but mainly use and skill, or winners in this pastime of our king. My hand, belike the lance hath dripped upon it, no blood of mine, I trow. But O chief knight, right arm of Arthur in the battlefield, great brother, thou nor I have made the world, be happy in thy fair queen as I in mine. And Tristram round the gallery made his horse caracole, then bowed his homage, bluntly saying, Fair damsels, each to him who worships each sole queen of beauty and of love, behold this day my queen of beauty is not here. And most of these were mute, some angered, one murmuring, All courtesy is dead, and one, The glory of our round table is no more. Then fell thick rain, plume drooped and mantle clung, and pettish cries awoke, and the wan day went glooming down in wet and weariness. But under her black brows a swarthy one laughed shrilly, crying, Praise the patient saints, our one white day of innocence hath passed, though somewhat draggled at the skirt. So be it, the snowdrop only, flowering through the year, would make the world as blank as winter tide. Come, let us gladden their sad eyes, our queens and Lancelot's, at this night's solemnity with all the kindlier colors of the field. So dame and damsel glittered at the feast variously gay, for he that tells the tale likened them, saying, as when an hour of cold falls on the mountain in midsummer snows, and all the purple slopes of mountain flowers pass under white, till the warm hour returns with veer of wind, and all are flowers again. So dame and damsel cast the simple white, and glowing in all colors, the live grass, rose campion, bluebell, kingcup, poppy, glanced about the revels, and with mirth so loud beyond all use, that, half amazed, the queen, and wroth at Tristram and the lawless jousts, brake up their sports, then slowly to her bower parted, and in her bosom pain was lord. And little Dagonet on the morrow morn, high over all the yellowing autumn tide, danced like a withered leaf before the hall. Then Tristram saying, Why skipped ye so, Sir Fool? Wheeled round on either heel, Dagonet replied, Belike for lack of wiser company, or being fool, and seeing too much. Wit makes the world rotten, why, belike I skipped to know myself the wisest knight of all. I, fool, said Tristram, but 'tis eating dry to dance without a catch, a roundelay to dance to. Then he twangled on his harp, and while he twangled little Dagonet stood quiet as any water-sodden log stayed in the wandering warble of a brook. But when the twangling ended, skipped again, and being asked, Why skipped ye not, Sir Fool? Made answer, I had liefer 20 years skipped to the broken music of my brains than any broken music thou canst make. Then Tristram, waiting for the quip to come, Good now, what music have I broken, fool? And little Dagonet, skipping, Arthur, the king's, for when thou playest that air with Queen Iseult, thou mockest broken music with thy bride, her daintier namesake down in Brittany, and so thou breakest Arthur's music too. Save for that broken music in thy brains, Sir Fool, said Tristram, I would break thy head. Fool, I came too late, the heathen wars were o'er, the life had flown, we swear but by the shell. I am but a fool to reason with a fool. Come, thou art crabbed and sour, but lean me down, Sir Dagonet, one of thy long ass's ears, and hearken if my music be not true. Free love, free field, we love but while we may. The woods are hushed, their music is no more. The leaf is dead, the yearning passed away. New leaf, new life. The days of frost are o'er. New life, new love, to suit the newer day. New loves are sweet as those that went before. Free love, free field. We love but while we may. Ye might have moved slow measure to my tune, not stood stock still. I made it in the woods, and heard it ring as true as tested gold. But Dagonet with one foot poised in his hand, Friend, did ye mark that fountain yesterday made to run wine? But this had run itself all out like a long life to a sour end, and them that round it sat with golden cups to hand the wine to whosoever came. The 12 small damosels white as innocence, in honor of poor Innocence the babe, who left the gems which Innocence the queen lent to the king, and Innocence the king gave for a prize, and one of those white slips handed her cup and piped, the pretty one, drink, drink, Sir Fool, and thereupon I drank, spat, pish, the cup was gold, the draught was mud. And Tristram, was it muddier than thy gibs? Is all the laughter gone dead out of thee? Not marking how the knighthood mock thee, fool. Fear God. Honor the king, his one true knight, sole follower of the vows, for here be they who knew thee swine enow before I came, smuttier than blasted grain. But when the king had made thee fool, thy vanity so shot up it frighted all free fool from out thy heart, which left thee less than fool, and less than swine, a naked ought. Yet swine I hold thee still, for I have flung thee pearls and find thee swine. And little Dagonet mincing with his feet, knight, and ye fling those rubies round my neck in lieu of hers. I'll hold thou hast some touch of music, since I care not for thy pearls, swine. I have wallowed, I have washed. The world is flesh and shadow, I have had my day. The dirty nurse, experience, in her kind hath fouled me, and I wallowed, then I washed. I have had my day and my philosophies, and thank the Lord I am King Arthur's fool. Swine, say ye? Swine, goats, asses, rams and geese trooped round a Paynim harper once, who thrummed on such a wire as musically as thou some such fine song, but never a king's fool. And Tristram, then were swine, goats, asses, geese the wiser fools, seeing thy Paynim bard had such a mastery of his mystery that he could harp his wife up out of hell. Then Dagonet, turning on the ball of his foot, and whither harpst thou thine? Down, and thyself down, and 2 more, a helpful harper. Thou, that harpest downward, dost thou know the star we call the harp of Arthur up in heaven? And Tristram, I, Sir Fool, for when our king was victor well nigh day by day, the knights, glorying in each new glory, set his name high on all hills, and in the signs of heaven. And Dagonet answered, I, and when the land was freed, and the queen false, ye set yourself to babble about him, all to show your wit, and whether he were king by courtesy, or king by right. And so went harping down the black king's highway, got so far, and grew so witty that ye played at ducks and drakes with Arthur's vows on the great lake of fire. Tuuhu, do ye see it? Do ye see the star? Nay, fool, said Tristram, not in open day. And Dagonet, nay, nor will I see it in here, it makes a silent music up in heaven, and I, and Arthur and the angels here, and then we skip. Lo, fool, he said. Ye talk fool's treason, is the king thy brother fool? Then little Dagonet clapped his hands and shrilled, I, my brother fool, the king of fools. Conceits himself as God that he can make figs out of thistles, silk from bristles, milk from burning spurge, honey from hornet combs, and men from beasts. Long live the king of fools. And down the city Dagonet danced away. But through the slowly mellowing avenues and solitary passes of the wood rode Tristram toward Lyonesse in the west. Before him fled the face of Queen Iseult with ruby-circled neck, but evermore past, as a rustle or twitter in the wood made dull his inner, keen his outer eye for all that walked, or crept, or perched, or flew. Anon the face, as, when a gust hath blown, unruffling waters recollect the shape of one that in them sees himself, returned. But at the slot or fumets of a deer, or even a fallen feather, vanished again. So on for all that day from lawn to lawn through many a league-long bower he rode. At length a lodge of intertwisted beechen boughs firs crammed, and bracken roofed, the which himself built for a summer day with Queen Iseult against a shower, dark in the golden grove appearing, sent his fancy back to where she lived a moon in that low lodge with him. Till Mark her lord had passed, the Cornish king, with 6 or 7, when Tristram was away, and snatched her thence. Yet dreading worse than shame her warrior Tristram, spake not any word, but bode his hour, devising wretchedness. And now that desert lodge to Tristram looked so sweet, that halting in he passed, and sank down on a drift of foliage random blown, but could not rest for musing how to smooth and sleek his marriage over to the queen. Perchance in lone Tintagel far from all the tonguesters of the court she had not heard, but then what folly had sent him overseas after she left him lonely here? A name? Was it the name of one in Brittany, Iseult, the daughter of the king? Iseult of the white hands they called her. The sweet name allured him first, and then the maid herself, who served him well with those white hands of hers, and loved him well, until himself had thought he loved her also, wedded easily, but left her all as easily, and returned. The black-blue Irish hair and Irish eyes had drawn him home, what marvel? Then he laid his brows upon the drifted leaf and dreamed. He seemed to pace the strand of Brittany between Iseult of Britain and his bride, and showed them both the ruby chain, and both began to struggle for it, till his queen grasped it so hard, that all her hand was red. Then cried the Breton, "Look, her hand is red. These be no rubies, this is frozen blood, and melts within her hand. Her hand is hot with ill desires, but this I gave thee, look, is all as cool and white as any flower." Followed a rush of eagle's wings, and then a whimpering of the spirit of the child, because the twain had spoiled her carcanet. He dreamed. But Arthur with 100 spears rode far, till o'er the illimitable reed, and many a glancing plash and sallowy isle, the wide-winged sunset of the misty marsh glared on a huge machicolated tower that stood with open doors, whereout was rolled a roar of riot, as from men secure amid their marshes, ruffians at their ease among their harlot brides, an evil song. "Lo there," said one of Arthur's youth, for there, high on a grim dead tree before the tower, a goodly brother of the Table Round swung by the neck, and on the boughs a shield showing a shower of blood in a field noir, and there beside a horn, inflamed the knights at that dishonour done the gilded spur, till each would clash the shield, and blow the horn, but Arthur waved them back. Alone he rode, then at the dry harsh roar of the great horn, that sent the face of all the marsh aloft an ever upward rushing storm and cloud of shriek and plume. The Red Knight heard, and all, even to tipmost lance and topmost helm, in blood-red armor sallying, howled to the king, "The teeth of hell flay bare and gnash thee flat. Lo, art thou not that eunuch-hearted king who fain had clipped free manhood from the world, the woman-worshipper? Yea, God's curse, and I. Slain was the brother of my paramour by a knight of thine, and I that heard her whine and snivel, being eunuch-hearted too, swear by the scorpion worm that twists in hell, and stings itself to everlasting death, to hang whatever knight of thine I fought and tumbled. Art thou king? Look to thy life," he ended. Arthur knew the voice. The face well nigh was helmet hidden, and the name went wandering somewhere darkling in his mind. And Arthur deigned not use of word or sword, but let the drunkard, as he stretched from horse to strike him, overbalancing his bulk, down from the causeway heavily to the swamp fall, as the crest of some slow arching wave, heard in dead night along that table shore, drops flat, and after the great waters break whitening for half a league, and thin themselves, far over sands marbled with moon and cloud, from less and less to nothing. Thus he fell head heavy. Then the knights, who watched him, roared and shouted and leapt down upon the fallen. There trampled out his face from being known, and sank his head in mire, and slimed themselves. Nor heard the king for their own cries, but sprang through open doors, and sorting right and left men, women, on their sodden faces, hurled the tables over in the wines, and slew till all the rafters rang with woman yells, and all the pavement streamed with massacre. Then, echoing yell with yell, they fired the tower, which half that autumn night like the live north, red pulsing up through Aliath and Alcor, made all above it, and 100 meres about it, as the water Moab saw came round by the east, and out beyond them flushed the long low dune, and lazy plunging sea. So all the ways were safe from shore to shore, but in the heart of Arthur pain was lord. Then, out of Tristram waking, the red dream fled with a shout, and that low lodge returned, mid-forest, and the wind among the boughs. He whistled his good warhorse left to graze among the forest greens, vaulted upon him, and rode beneath an ever-showering leaf, till one lone woman, weeping near a cross, stayed him. "Why weep ye? Lord," she said. "My man hath left me or is dead." Whereon he thought, "What, if she hate me now? I would not this. What, if she love me still? I would not that. I know not what I would," but said to her, "Yet weep not thou, lest, if thy mate return, he find thy favor changed and love thee not." Then pressing day by day through Lyonesse last in a rocky hollow, belling, heard the hounds of Mark, and felt the goodly hounds yelp at his heart, but turning, passed and gained Tintagel, half in sea, and high on land, a crown of towers. Down in a casement sat, a low sea sunset glorying round her hair and glossy-throated grace, Iseult the queen. And when she heard the feet of Tristram grind the spurring stone that scaled about her tower, flushed, started, met him at the doors, and there belted his body with her white embrace, crying aloud, "Not Mark, not Mark, my soul." The footstep fluttered me at first, not he. Cat-like through his own castle steals my Mark, but warrior wise thou stride street through his halls who hates thee, as I him, even to the death. My soul, I felt my hatred for my Mark quicken within me, and knew that thou wert nigh. To whom Sir Tristram smiling, "I am here. Let be thy Mark, seeing he is not thine." And drawing somewhat backward she replied, "Can he be wronged who is not even his own, but save for dread of thee had beaten me, scratched, bitten, blinded, marred me somehow, Mark? What rights are his that dare not strike for them, not lift a hand, not, though he found me thus? But hearken, have ye met him? Hence he went today for 3 days, hunting, as he said, and so returns belike within an hour. Mark's way, my soul. But eat not thou with Mark, because he hates thee even more than fears, nor drink, and when thou passest any wood close visor, lest an arrow from the bush should leave me all alone with Mark and hell. My God, the measure of my hate for Mark is as the measure of my love for thee." So, plucked one way by hate and one by love, drained of her force, again she sat, and spake to Tristram, as he knelt before her, saying, "O hunter, and O blower of the horn, harper, and thou hast been a rover too, for, ere I mated with my shambling king, ye twain had fallen out about the bride of one. His name is out of me. The prize, if prize she were, what marvel, she could see. Thine, friend. And ever since my craven seeks to wreck thee villainously. But, O Sir Knight, what dame or damsel have ye kneeled to last?" And Tristram, last to my queen paramount. Here now to my queen paramount of love and loveliness. Ay, lovelier than when first her light feet fell on our rough Lyonesse, sailing from Ireland. Softly laughed Iseult. Flatter me not, for hath not our great queen my dole of beauty trebled? And he said, Her beauty is her beauty, and thine thine, and thine is more to me. Soft, gracious, kind. Save when thy mark is kindled on thy lips most gracious. But she, haughty, even to him, Lancelot. For I have seen him wan enow to make one doubt if ever the great queen have yielded him her love. To whom Iseult, Ah then, false hunter and false harper, thou who brackest through the scruple of my bond, calling me thy white hind, and saying to me that Guinevere had sinned against the highest, and I, misyoked with such a one of man, that I could hardly sin against the lowest. He answered, O my soul, be comforted. If this be sweet, to sin in leading strings, if here be comfort, and if ours be sin, crowned warrant had we for the crowning sin that made us happy. But how ye greet me, fear and fault and doubt, no word of that fond tale, thy deep heart yearnings, thy sweet memories of Tristram in that year he was away. And, saddening on the sudden, spake Isolde, I had forgotten all in my strong joy to see thee. Yearnings? Ay. For, hour by hour, here in the never-ended afternoon, O sweeter than all memories of thee, deeper than any yearnings after thee seemed those far-rolling, westward smiling seas, watched from this tower. Isolde of Britain dashed before Isolde of Brittany on the strand, would that have chilled her bride kiss? Wedded her? Fought in her father's battles? Wounded there? The king was all fulfilled with gratefulness, and she, my namesake of the hands, that healed thy hurt and heart with unguent and caress, well, can I wish her any huger wrong than having known thee? Her too hast thou left to pine and waste in those sweet memories. Oh, were I not my marks, by whom all men are noble, I should hate thee more than love. And Tristram, fondling her light hands, replied, Grace. Queen, for being loved, she loved me well. Did I love her? The name at least I loved. Isolde? I fought his battles, for Isolde. The night was dark, the true star set. Isolde, the name was ruler of the dark. Isolde? Care not for her, patient, and prayerful, meek, pale-blooded, she will yield herself to God. And Isolde answered, Yea, and why not I? Mine is the larger need, who am not meek, pale-blooded, prayerful. Let me tell thee now. Here one black, mute midsummer night I sat, lonely, but musing on thee, wondering where, murmuring a light song I had heard thee sing, and once or twice I spake thy name aloud. Then flashed 11 brand, and near me stood, in fuming sulphur blue and green, a fiend. Mark's way to steal behind one in the dark, for there was Mark. He has wedded her, he said, not said, but hissed it. Then this crown of towers so shook to such a roar of all the sky, that here in utter dark I swooned away, and woke again in utter dark, and cried, I will flee hence and give myself to God, and thou wert lying in thy new leman's arms. Then Tristram, ever dallying with her hand, May God be with thee, sweet, when old and grey, and past desire, a saying that angered her. May God be with thee, sweet, when thou art old, and sweet no more to me. I need him now, for when had Lancelot uttered aught so gross even to the swineherd's malkin in the mast? The greater man, the greater courtesy. Far other was the Tristram, Arthur's knight. But thou, through ever harrying thy wild beasts, save that to touch a harp, tilt with a lance becomes thee well, art grown wild beast thyself. How darest thou, if lover, push me even in fancy from thy side, and set me far in the grey distance, half a life away, her to be loved no more? Unsay it, unswear, flatter me rather, seeing me so weak, broken with mark and hate and solitude, thy marriage and mine own, that I should suck lies like sweet wines. Lie to me, I believe. Will ye not lie? Not swear, as there ye kneel, and solemnly as when ye swear to him, the man of men, our king. My God, the power was once in vows when men believed the king. They lied not then, who swear, and through their vows the king prevailing made his realm. I say, swear to me thou wilt love me even when old, grey-haired, and past desire, and in despair. Then Tristram, pacing moodily up and down, vows. Did you keep the vow you made to Mark more than I mine? Lied, say ye? Nay, but learnt, the vow that binds too strictly snaps itself. My knighthood taught me this. I, being snapped, we run more counter to the soul thereof than had we never sworn. I swear no more. I swore to the great king, and am forsworn. For once, even to the height, I honored him. Man, is he man at all? Methought, when first I rode from our rough Lyonesse, and beheld that victor of the pagan throned in hall, his hair, a sun that rayed from off a brow like hills now high in heaven, the steel blue eyes, the golden beard that clothed his lips with light. Moreover, that weird legend of his birth, with Merlin's mystic babble about his end amazed me. Then, his foot was on a stool shaped as a dragon. He seemed to me no man, but Michael trampling Satan. So I swear, being amazed. But this went by, the vows. Oh, the wholesome madness of an hour. They served their use, their time. For every knight believed himself a greater than himself, and every follower eyed him as a god, till he, being lifted up beyond himself, did mightier deeds than elsewise he had done, and so the realm was made. But then their vows, first mainly through that sullying of our queen, began to gall the knighthood, asking whence had Arthur right to bind them to himself? Dropped down from heaven? Washed up from out the deep? They failed to trace him through the flesh and blood of our old kings. Whence then, a doubtful lord to bind them by inviolable vows, which flesh and blood perforce would violate? For feel this arm of mine. The tide within red with free chase and heather-scented air, pulsing full man. Can Arthur make me pure as any maiden child? Lock up my tongue from uttering freely what I freely hear? Bind me to one? The wide world laughs at it. And, worldling of the world am I, and know the ptarmigan that whitens ere his hour woos his own end. We are not angels here nor shall be. Vows. I am woodman of the woods, and hear the garnet-headed yaffingale mock them. My soul, we love but while we may, and therefore is my love so large for thee, seeing it is not bounded save by love. Here ending, he moved toward her, and she said, "Good. And I turned away my love for thee to some one thrice as courteous as thyself. For courtesy wins woman all as well as valor may, but he that closes both is perfect, he is Lancelot. Taller indeed, rosier and comelier, thou. But say I loved this knightliest of all knights, and cast thee back thine own small saw. We love but while we may, well then, what answer? He that while she spake, mindful of what he brought to adorn her with, the jewels, had let one finger lightly touch the warm white apple of her throat, replied, "Press this a little closer, sweet, and tell, come, I am hungered and half angered. Meat, wine, and I will love thee to the death, and out beyond into the dream to come." So then, when both were brought to full accord, she rose, and set before him all he willed. And after these had comforted the blood with meats and wines, and satiated their hearts, now talking of their woodland paradise, the deer, the dews, the fern, the founts, the lawns, now mocking at the much ungainliness, and craven shifts, and long crane legs of Mark. Then Tristram laughing caught the harp, and sang, I, the winds that bend the briar. A star in heaven, a star within the mere. I. A star was my desire, and one was far apart, and one was near. I. The winds that bow the grass. And one was water and one star was fire, and one will ever shine and one will pass. I. The winds that move the mere. Then in the light's last glimmer, Tristram showed and swung the ruby carcanet. She cried, the collar of some order, which our king hath newly founded, all for thee, my soul, for thee, to yield thee grace beyond thy peers. Not so, my queen, he said, but the red fruit grown on a magic oak tree in mid-heaven, and won by Tristram as a tourney prize, and hither brought by Tristram for his last love offering, and peace offering unto thee. He spoke, he turned, then, flinging round her neck, clasped it, and cried, thine order, O my queen. But, while he bowed to kiss the jeweled throat, out of the dark, just as the lips had touched, behind him rose a shadow and a shriek. Mark's way, said Mark, and clove him through the brain. That night came Arthur home, and while he climbed, all in a death-dumb autumn dripping gloom, the stairway to the hall, and looked and saw the great queen's bower was dark. About his feet a voice clung sobbing till he questioned it. What art thou? And the voice about his feet sent up an answer, sobbing, I am thy fool, and I shall never make thee smile again.